Hi everyone. Hope all are doing good. I am Divya. Welcome back to our channel Uipath RPA Learners. So as part of today's video, we are going to learn about web automation using an Uipath. So before going into a use case today, so we just need to understand what is web automation by the way. So, web automation is a way to automate any common web actions like filling a form in a specific URL, clicking on buttons, and downloading your files from an URL. All this can be done by using an UiPath robot. So, let's see how to do that. So, in today's session, I'm going to use a website called rpasamples.com. So, this is an example website given by RPA Academy for learning and practice purpose. Okay, so in this website what I'm going to do today is I'm going to open this URL in a specific browser from by UiPath, and I'm going to click on this unicorn name generator, and I have to provide the details of name and the month which is present in my Excel data, and I have to iterate in each values in this data, and I have to pass in this value. Once the data has given, when I click on a get unicorn name, a unique name will be generated. So this unique name I'm gonna copy. Okay, so let's see how to do that. So I'm going to UiPath. So today I'm gonna use a sequence workflow. So as a good practice, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna change the display name to the sequence. If we are doing a web automation, I'm naming my sequence as a web automation. Okay, I'm ready. So the activity to use a specific URL in the browser is nothing but the open browser. For that, right now I'm copying the specific URL and then have to look for an activity called a open browser. So open browser is an container, that enables you to open a browser at a specified URL and executes on multiple activities in it. So I opened a open browser activity in the sequence workflow. So it is looking for an input type of a browser type and as well as the URL which is required to open in the specified browser. So in the browser type, UiPath supports different types of a browser, i.e. Firefox, Chrome and Edge. So in our case, let's go with the Chrome browser. So if you're not mentioning any browser type here, by default it will take a Internet Explorer. Right now I'm giving a browser type called a Chrome, so my URL will be opened in my Chrome browser. So let's open the URL. If you see, my URL section is a string input, so I have to provide my URL value in double quotes and click OK. If you see it here, once I provided my input values, the the error message is not appeared right now. Okay, fine. So with this, I'll be able to open the specific URL in the browser which I've mentioned. So and after that, to go to one type into name and the the month field, I have to click on this specific unicorn name generator button. So how do I click that? By using your UiPath. So the activity to use to click your specific place, a specific button, is nothing but your click activity is responsible for that. So when I click on a, when I drag and drop the click activity, it is telling, please indicate an element inside a browser to where to click on it specifically. So just click here, just you have this, string, right? So indicate an element inside the browser. Just please click here. So it will take you to the most recent page. In our case, this is not the page which we are looking for, right? We have to go to the web application. So what you have to do is click on escape and go to your specified Chrome browser application where you wanted to automate. Now come to your Path Studio and click on indicate element inside the browser. Now click on this element. When you highlight it, so this will be highlighted. This will be able to indicate only if you have your UiPath extensions in your specified browser. So let me tell you how to install your extensions for your browser. So first, I'm clicking this specific button. If you can see, the yellow color mark is coming in outside this button. This indicates that this is clearly identified. Enter. So now this is done. Let's understand the input types with respect to the click. So the click type, it is looking for, you also have like what kind of a click that you have to pass into the UI, whether it's a single click or a double click or a down or a up. So this kind of an parameters also can be defined in your properties. And the mouse button. So what kind of, like either it should be in a left or right or a middle. So this is also can be a defined. So right now, I'll go by default. And if you see it here, once I indicated, the selector is also identified. When I open it, so it is perfect. You can see it is a valid selector. So let's go. So till here, we have opened the browser. We have clicked on this unicorn name button. And after that, we will be in this page where we need to enter the value of your name and the month. But the value is present in our Excel. So what we have to do? We have to read the data from the Excel and we have to pass into that specific field, right? So the activity to read the specific data from an Excel is a read range. So now I'll type in a read range. So when I provide a read range, you can see the read range, activity is present in your under your Excel hierarchy and as well as your workbook hierarchy. I'm going with your workbook hierarchy. What exactly happens? It reads the value of your Excel data from a spreadsheet and it stores as a data table. Let's drag and drop this read range and activity. So now here it is telling workbook path must be provided inside the quotes. Either you can copy a path directly and put it in a double quotes, or you can use your browse file option to browse a file if it's present in your file explorer and then mention that file, automatically that specified path will be coming in your double quotes. Okay, so I have mentioned which file have a data to pass in my UI automation. And it is also accurate for the sheet as well because each Excel workbook has multiple sheets present in it, right? So you have to specifically mention from which sheet that you wanted to take the data. In our case, the data is present in the sheet 1. So I'm going with the sheet 1 default. And the next thing is a range. It is looking for a range. So when you open your Excel, you will have a data, a cell value will be present. So in our case, if you see, the data is present from an A1 cell to a B10 cell. So this is our range. So you can even specify a range to copy the data. If at all, if your data is dynamic in nature, it will change and every time, irrespective of your, the change in data, you wanted to copy an entire data present in the specified sheet. So make sure that you just make it empty in your range. So what will happen this time? Irrespective of whatever the range the data is present, it will take an entire sheet value and it will store it into the data table. If you see, the output data table is empty if you see it here. So what we have to do, we have to create a variable to store the value which we copied from an Excel. Okay. So I'm creating a variable called DTL Excel data. Okay. DT Excel data. Click it here, click OK. So once I end created from there, if you see in a variable section, automatically it is created with the variable type of data table. And if you can see, the scope is to the web automation. That is nothing but the a sequence name which I have provided. Okay, it is done now. And you also see that there is one other property which is present here, that is headers. If your Excel data has the column name, that is headers present, so make sure that you enable this. Okay, so now we are ready with the read range. So we will read this data and it is stored in the data table. After it's stored in the data table, if you can see, the data is present in the 10 different rows, right? So it needs to loop through and iterate through each row value and pass into a specific field. For that, I'm going to use a for each row in data table. So the for each row in data table is responsible for executing all the data which is specified data table. So I have to mention the data table which holds a complete data from an Excel, that is my DT Excel data which I created in the read range output that I'm providing here. Okay. So what is this current row? The current row is responsible for holding each row value when it is iterating. So when first time it is iterating, it holds a value of January. And the next time it is iterating, it holds a value of Lisa and February. Right? So you can ask why it will not hold a name and the month column name, is it? Yes, because it is already know we declared that the first row column is a header column. Okay, so that is the reason. So this is current row is a variable which is responsible for holding your each row data when it is iterating. Okay, fine. So this is ready. So after iterating, what is an action that I have to perform inside this, right? So I have to pass in the name value here and I have to pass in the month value in this field. So what is the activity will I use to pass my keystroke values to a specified UI field? The activity is nothing but it's a type into. What is the activity? A type into activity is responsible for sending a keystrokes value to any specific UI element. So the same way what we mentioned in the click, here as well we have to indicate on the screen where we need to provide an data. Okay. Now indicate on the screen and indicate it here. So it says that I'm indicating a name field. Just a minute, I have by mistake I have clicked on this Dell updates. Okay, fine. Indicate on the screen. Sorry, while navigating from a browser to the Uipath by mistake, I've clicked on my Dell updates, so it opened. Okay, now I click on indicate on the screen and I have to open my specific location where do I want me to indicate it, and then I mention this specific field where you wanted to pass in your name value. Here, done. Okay, now I'm ready with the where I have to give the data. Now, how I take the data? So what I told, this current row is responsible for holding your each row value, right? So just click in current row and then inside your moon brackets, you have to mention your column, from which column you have to take the data. So in our case, we have to take the data from the first column and we also have a column name. So I'm mentioning a column name. The name column data need to be typed in this specific field and I'm just converting into a string. I'm taking another type into an activity to type in my month data. Okay. Now I click on a current row and then again I have to mention the from which column I have to take the data. The column name should be exactly matched with the column name which you have given in the Excel. Otherwise, it will not be able to take the data from an Excel and return there. Okay. So this is one such way, or otherwise you can even use a column index which we mentioned in our previous video. Okay, right. So now I'm ready with the data, and after I enter, what I have to do, on name. So as we already saw, to click on any specific button in a screen, what we need to use is a click. So and now I'm going to indicate where my where do I want my UI path to uh, click enter. So now this is done. So once that is provided, if you see, I'll give you some data, see here. So once I click on get unicorn name, so this is the way that the name will be generated for each unique name which I'm giving in your name and the month field. So basically I have to copy this text. So till now what we saw is we are providing some input value, either it can be a type into or open browser or whatever. We have an input property to provide a data. But here we are going to copy the data from the UI, UI. What is the activity which I should use for that is get text. So the get text activity is responsible for extracting a specific text value from a UI. Okay. So now I have to indicate what is the text that I have to copy, right? Indicate on the screen and indicate this. So this is a unique name which is generated. So click here. Okay, it is copied. So if you see it here, it doesn't have any input property because we are not passing any input value to this activity basically. So it has only an output. We are copying a data from an UI. So let's declare a variable to store the unique value which is copied from the browser. So click on a Control K and provide. I'm going to give a name called unicorn because it is copying a unicorn name and click OK. So what will happen? During a runtime, it will provide in each row data and click enter and the unicorn name will be generated and that will be stored in this variable called a unicorn. So you can see in the variable section, you can see the unicorn, a variable type called a string, it is created. Okay, what I can do with this data? Either you can return in the Excel file or you can take it into a different application, you can write it into a CSV or a text file, everything is possible. So for the demo purpose today, I'm going to use a message box to display the value which I've copied from a browser. So what is the value that I have for? So the variable which holds the unicorn name is this unicorn variable. So just click on U, your variable or which you already declared will be displayed. Just click enter. So that will be taken into a message box. So what is the, let's recap from the beginning. So what I'm doing a web automation of this specific URL called rpasamples.com. So it will open in the specific browser which I have mentioned, that is a Chrome browser, this URL, and it will click on the unicorn name generated, and I'm using a sample Excel file which holds some 10 data rows in it. So it will read the data by using your read range activity and store it into a data table, and from there it will iterate and it will enter the values taken from an Excel to a specific field in the web application, and it will, after entering, some unique name will be generated. That name will be copied in and will be displayed in the message box. So even you have a message box, automatically close after time also can be mentioned in. If at all, if it is not mentioned, it will wait for your input value to click on close button to, display the another data. So in our case, let us display a, deep timing itself to close the message box window. So I'm just mentioning a 3 seconds. What will happen? It will wait for a 3 seconds, it will display and then it will go for the next data to enter. Okay. So that's a way. So I'm using a read range from a workbook, right? So I have to close this Excel file before it is executing. Okay, done. So let's execute this program now. Run. So now my program is running. If you see, it is opening the browser, entering the name, clicking. It will display in the Sunbeam. Yeah, so you can see message box. It just displayed for 3 seconds and it is, you can see 1, 2, 3. Then taking the next data. Yes. So the same way it will take a data from an Excel one by one and that unicorn name will be generated in the message box copied from that browser. So, on the default timing which we mentioned is 3 seconds. So, it will not wait for our input to close the message box. It will automatically close it, within the, after the 3 seconds, and it will go and take the next data from there. Okay, so you can see how fast it has executed. So just consider the manual effort to do this job. Basically, to it has 10 data. Basically, to fill this 10 data manually, take the unicorn name and store it somewhere. If you do it manually, how much manual effort and time is required to do this task? So by doing an automation, just within a 5 minutes of an automation process creation and within a fraction of seconds of an execution, we have accomplished this task and we can run this task n number of times. Okay, so this is a way automation is helpful